Hey there, welcome to the channel. This is Caffeinicus, and today's World of Warships video will feature a game in the Fuso, the Tier 6 Tech Tree IJN battleship. This is a Tier 7 maximum game on the map New Dawn, where I'm playing with my buddy Shan Yu from Salty, who is in the Bayern. Our team spawns northeast, and when Shan Yu and I play together in battleships, we tend to take a flank each in order to help support our team. In this case, I'm heading north, while he heads south. As always, let's start with the strengths and weaknesses of the ship as we're moving into position. The Fuso has 12 356mm guns in 6 double turrets, 2 in front, 2 amidships, and 2 in the rear of the ship. The front 3 turrets rotate forward, while the rear 3 rotate backwards. These have a quick reload of 25 seconds. They also have the best range of any Tier 6 battleship at 21.8 kilometers. And to top it off, you can also mount the spotter plane consumable to push this range out to over 26 kilometers. The AP shell maximum damage is 10.2k, while the HE shells do up to 5.7k with a 25% chance to start fires. The accuracy isn't bad either, so landing shells at range feels comfortable for a battleship caliber gun. The downside, however, is that these guns have abysmal turret traverse, and the only consolation here is that you're not playing the Queen Elizabeth. The Fuso's HP pool is huge at 57.1k once fully upgraded, resulting in this ship having the highest base HP pool for a Tech 3 Tier 6 battleship and third highest overall at Tier 6. The armor profile is okay, with pretty standard 26mm end plating. You do have a 102mm strake of armor extending from the citadel to the bow, which can bounce higher caliber shells if angled, and the deck plating of 35mm will help mitigate damage from HE spam. However, do be careful of overturning the ship when trying to bring your guns into play, as you can get wrecked by enemy battleships. Fortunately, the guns do have good arcs, so you only need to turn your ship about 35 degrees to bring all of her guns to bear. And the base speed is 24.5 knots, which is decent, but because of the size of the ship, you have a terrible turning circle and rudder shift at 740 meters and 14.9 seconds respectively. In addition, the Fuso, being such a large and tall ship, gets spotted from the moon. At best, you can get her concealment down to 16.5 kilometers with captain skills and camo, so you'll most likely be the first ship to be spotted in a game, especially on smaller maps. In fact, there are cruisers you'll face who will actually have to get deep into your concealment range before they can even fire on you. Yeah, it's just that bad. The AA suite isn't much to shout about either, so try to stay close to friendly AA cruisers when there's a carrier in play. At this point, let's get back to the game. You may have noticed that I'm firing HE in this game, and that's because I was working on the 4th task of the 2nd mission of the 5 Epochs of the Navy campaign, where you have to set 15 fires in certain battleships. So what better way to do that than in the Fuso? Unfortunately, my accuracy has been pretty terrible up to this point, but I quickly turn it around with a good salvo on the Arizona that starts 2 fires. The Arizona repairs, and he gets spotted once again. Well, let's see if we can get more fires, shall we? I take a shot, and I also slow down to make sure I don't run into the torpedoes ahead. And sure enough, yet another fire. And this one will be a permanent burn on that Arizona. It also looks like there's an Akatsuki up here as well from the looks of those torpedoes. So I'm going to have to play with my speed and make a few turns here and there. In the meanwhile, yet another salvo is out on the Arizona, and we get one more fire. So that's 4 fires so far on that poor USN battleship. The enemy ranger gets spotted behind an island on the other side of the map here. With any other tier 6, you're not going to be able to hit that carrier unless you have a spotter plane, and even then there's no guarantee that you'll even have the range. But with the Fuso, this is no problem. So let's take a shot at the Ranger. Our shells will take over 13 seconds to get across the map, but we are rewarded with 8 penetrations and a fire at over 20 kilometer range. That's pretty insane RNG on that shot, to be honest. Now I'd like to finish off that Arizona that I lit on fire earlier, but he's been hiding behind the island. An enemy Hawkins does show up, so I'm going to target him instead. And in most cases you would definitely want to shoot AP here, but again, for the sake of my campaign mission I'm sticking to HE. Also, remember what I said about the Akatsuki up here? I've been slowing down and doing some slight course changes, but seems that I didn't time my maneuvers well at all, as his little fishes show up on my port side and I do end up taking some of them. But the Fuso's torpedo belt held up pretty well there with its 34% damage reduction. I also get 4 hits in on the Hawkins and, yes you guessed it, another fire. I decide to turn back around now as the immediate torpedo threat has passed, so that I can finish off the Arizona if he pushes past the island. Our Montecuccoli seems to be charging right into the Arizona though, so I'm hoping he doesn't get splattered, and instead takes out the Arizona with maybe either his guns or torpedoes. As a result, I turn my attention back to the Hawkins here and launch a salvo on him at about 13 kilometers. Our Montecuccoli successfully takes out the Arizona with his torps, and we light the Hawkins up yet again. But at this point, I'm actually sitting really far back from our team. It's not really a problem for me, as my range does permit me to keep being effective, but I am still a battleship, so I've got to turn around and push in with our team to help take some of the enemy fire. The Akatsuki is briefly lit up here, so I take a shot at him, even though I'm not too confident in hitting that destroyer at this range. And sure enough, my shells land short as the Akatsuki maneuvers to get away. The enemy ranger is spotted once again, and our Miyoko seems to be charging right into him. I decide to take a shot here to help make sure we remove that carrier from play. But by the time my shells land, the Miyoko has already dealt with the carrier. So nice play there for our team, and it helps give us the advantage. Since most of the threats north have been neutralized, I'm turning my ship, and I decide I'll head straight south from here to get back into the thick of things. And while I do that, I'm also going to turn my turrets. Once again, the Fuso's turret traverse isn't great, so make sure you point your guns in the direction of your next expected target as early as you can. In this case, it turns out to be the enemy Hawkins that I was shooting at earlier. Since the 3 frontal turrets rotate forward, I'm able to get 6 guns out on that Hawkins, and I light the last 2 fires that I need to finish my campaign mission. Just a quick note, you actually need 15 fires or citadels for the campaign, but I had a few done in a prior game. So I tell Shan Yu that the mission is done and I can play seriously now. But it looks like he's not been having as relaxing a game as I have so far. He's tanking numerous enemy ships south, including at least 3 battleships, a cruiser, and a destroyer. And with our Colorado and other Fuso running north, he's asking for support. So we point our Fuso southwards to see what we can do. In the meanwhile, the Akatsuki that torpedoed us earlier shows up, so we're going to take a punt at him. I do have to turn my ship a bit here though in order to get my guns on target quicker. But unfortunately, we only land 1 hit for about 1700 damage. That's okay though, as every little bit counts on a destroyer. I also switched to AP now, because the Fuso's AP shells are really good against equal and lower tier targets. And with the Hawkins forced into sailing straight to avoid the Miyoko torpedoes, we have a nice broadside shot into that tier 5 cruiser, and we get a nice citadel here to finish him off. My next target is a low health New Orleans that's using the island cover south of B, so I turn my ship again and aim my guns for him. Unfortunately, he disappears just as my guns are about to reload, so I switch instead to the Königsberg. And this, I think, is where I made a slight mistake. The Königsberg will soon be within my range, but I use my scout plane so that I can take a shot a bit sooner. And I'm terrible at shooting with a scout plane. Using it to hit ships behind islands or in smoke screens I'm okay with, but ships that are in the open and maneuvering I'm terrible at, so predictably I miss. I actually would like to see Wargaming maybe implement an option to recall the scout plane early, Have the effect be similar to how turning off your AA guns ends your defensive fire AA consumable and starts its cooldown, for example. Anyway, the New Orleans gets lit by our carrier, and this time, scout plane aim notwithstanding, we take out that enemy cruiser before he can start capping B. Shan Yu has also scared the enemy battleships into full retreat all by his own down in the south, so I can start picking targets as I sail into them. I initially think of firing on the Piotr Veliki, but decide to go for the West Virginia instead to try to give him something to think about instead of focusing on my buddy. My salvo looks good, but unfortunately only one non-penetration with my HE. I think I've used up all of my fire RNG in this game. The Piotr takes out our Miyoko as well, and it looks like the Akatsuki has now gotten into the A cap. Our Montecuccoli is still up there though, so I'm hoping he'll be able to hold the cap while I take another shot to try to finish off the West Virginia. I've switched back to HE as the battleships were initially angled towards me, but it figures that the West Virginia would turn broadside instead. And yet again, no fires and only 2 penetrations this time. The Akatsuki does get spotted in A, so I immediately turn my attention back to the cap. I turn my ship as well as my turrets in order to more quickly acquire the target, and the Montecuccoli gets a nice hit in. The Akatsuki starts to slow down and smoke up, and so I adjust my aim a bit and fire my salvo. Looks like the carrier is also coming in for a strike. I get 2 hits and a fire, and the carrier finishes off the destroyer. So nice team focus there. Unfortunately, our cruiser also goes down, but a tier 5 cruiser for a tier 7 destroyer was a good trade. We're leading on points and ships right now, but the enemy does have 2 caps to our 1, and will win if we don't do something about it. Shan Yu has a couple of battleships ahead of him and the Farragut behind him, and I'm trying to help him out by taking care of the West Virginia. But with only my front 2 turrets, it's not going well. I'm also wondering where the Piotr Veliki has gotten up to. I'm expecting him to be at the F3 F4 area and using those islands, so I angle my ships towards him as well. My rear guns are taking their own sweet time to swing around, and so I fire my 3rd turret on the Bayern. Someone really needs to get those cave trolls to stop taking so many stack breaks. My shots on the Bayern miss, and my turrets are still turning, and so I decide to fire my frontal guns on the West Virginia once again. I just need one more penetration to take him out. My shots are out, and also my rear guns are finally on target for the Bayern, but Shan Yu takes him out without even needing my help. This is where having that slow turret traverse really does hamper the Fuso a bit. And of course, my shots on the West Virginia do absolutely nothing as well. Okay, let's try one more salvo on that USN battleship as I move up. And whoa! The Piotr Veliki pops up only 4 kilometers away. I did not expect him to have gotten past me there, to be honest, so I immediately turn my ship to angle in, but not before he puts 13k damage into me. And guess what? Those rear turrets that took forever to turn earlier, I've now got to turn them all the way back. I do have my 3 front turrets though, so I angle my ship against the Piotr while trying to get my guns to bear. Between my front guns, I get 2 citadels into the Piotr, but this is not the situation you want to find the Fuso in, as your turret traverse will hamper the ship in a brawl. The enemy battleships that get your side can citadel you. And I continue to angle my ship, and here's where that frontal strake of armor comes in handy. The Piotr fires, but I bounce most of his shells. I wait for my front turrets to line up and fire. I get 11.5k damage, and leave the Piotr on 38 HP. Really? My 3rd turret is ready, and I think I can get through him at this angle, but just bounces. My rear guns finally get into action, and we finish off the Piotr. So a bit of a tense end to what was otherwise a nice calm game. So let's take a look at the post-game results. We did 128k damage in this game on 58 hits, with 3 kills, 11 fires, and 3 citadel hits. No achievements this time, but decent damage for a tier 6 game. Our base XP was 1815, and Shan Yu and I ended up 2nd and 3rd on our team as mid-tier ships. Also, well played to that Miyoko who topped the scoreboard, as well as the Akatsuki on the enemy team who stalked us up north. Our hit rate wasn't great, but I blamed it on my poor shooting while this spotter plane was up. And also, unfortunately for us, even though we had 11 fires in this game, we only had 27k fire damage. For anyone interested, here are the equipment and captain skills I use for the Fuso. Main armaments mod 1, damage controls mod 1 and 2, and aiming systems for increased accuracy. You can also go for main battery mod 2 to improve the turret traverse, but as I tend to play at mid to long ranges, I prefer the improved accuracy. For captain skills, I have preventative maintenance, grease the gears, priority target, adrenaline rush, and concealment expertise. With a higher skilled captain, I'd probably add emergency repair expert, fire prevention, and probably gun feeder, since I do switch shell types quite a bit in the Fuso. I would not recommend Deadeye, as in most cases you will likely find an enemy ship within your detection range, and Deadeye will not be active. So the Fuso in a nutshell. It's a good ship, and really fun to play like I alluded to in my Andrea Doria video a couple of weeks ago. The ship is effective regardless of whether you're top or bottom tier. Both its AP and HE are great when you're top tier, and if you find yourself bottom tier and having trouble getting through tier 8 battleships, just load HE and watch the world burn. It's also great to grind out any fire missions that come up from time to time. We only got 11 fires this game as we switched to AP halfway through. Just firing HE throughout can certainly net you a whole lot more fires though. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do me a favor and hit the like button below or subscribe to the channel. And please join me again next week for more World of Warships videos. Thank you for watching and take care.